Calling to order the meeting of the Southborough Select Board for July 28, 2023. Yes.
Can you give me 1 minute while the live starts?
Okay. So I'm calling to order the meeting of the Southborough Select Board for July 28. This is a special meeting, and we have 3 items on the agenda. The first item on the agenda is consideration of the change order for the townhouse renovation project regarding roofing materials. And I know that I had the opportunity earlier this morning to watch the video discussion of the Capital Improvement Planning Committee's discussion of this. And just as background, we had been targeting this to have on an earlier agenda, and then it got pushed back because we wanted to give Capital an opportunity to weigh in with their thoughts on this. So John did a nice job of preparing a memo that's in the packet explaining this. And John, why don't I just turn it over to you to describe what the change order is about, and if you could walk through everyone the procedural history of, the original town meeting vote to authorize it, CPC, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Let's start with the original town meeting. Basically, a few years ago, actually quite a few years back now, we started with the concept of perhaps it's time to address some of the issues up at the town hall. Now, anyone who's been watching the politics in town for the last decade or so know that I was continuously trying to get new windows for the town hall, and it was a very difficult task to accomplish around here for some reason. That one always kind of blew my mind, how hard it was to get new windows for the town hall. But then I started to realize town hall really needed some renovation work on the exterior. So then it came to the point of, well, perhaps we should work together with CPC to do a historic renovation on the building, and we can address the windows at the same time. Historic welcomed this idea. We had good support from them and CPC. So basically, we went to town meeting with this. We were going to put new windows in the town hall and restore the building as we are right now. As we got closer to going out to bid, the market was still horrible. We didn't think we would even remotely have a chance of getting the bid numbers we actually received. So we considered, all right, maybe instead of putting new windows in, we can actually restore the ones we have. We looked at them close. It's like, we think we can do this. It's like they've been closed in behind storms and had a lot of drying out over the years, but it's still possible to do it. So basically we went and we changed that up before we went out to bid, and we were floored with how good our bids came in. It's to a point you look at it and you go, this can't even be real. This is great. I mean, the market evidently was starting to correct at that time. And rather than having to buy new material for windows, evidently restoring them saved us that much more than we thought it would even save us. So that led us to the window restoration. So at this point at the town hall, we now have all the windows taken out except for a few behind the select board's table. They're out being restored. Storm windows have been ordered. All the pointing in the building has been removed. It's being repointed to the historic color, which was a dark gray / black mortar, which looks amazing. The chimneys that needed to be rebuilt have been taken down. They're starting to be put back up now. And this led us to the point we start looking at the roof. We're going, okay, originally we were going to do an asphalt roof, but the only reason we were going to do an asphalt roof, we didn't think there was a chance in Hades that we could actually afford a slate roof. So we said, you know what? Get us a number just in case. Let's take a look at this. And the number came back. And again, I was floored. The number for the slate upgrade is very close to what the second bid on the asphalt was. So needless to say, I'm like, I got to try to move forward with this. It's a historic restoration. This roof is historically correct, a slate roof. This is what this building was constructed with. So we went to CPC, got the approval from CPC, warm welcome. Didn't surprise me at all, because again, if you're going to do a true historic restoration, you want to bring as much back as possible. And the roof really is something people are going to notice, and it's a crucial element to any building. So basically, that's what leads us where we are today. We did meet with Capital yesterday. We did get an affirmative vote on it, a 4-1, but there was a caveat. They wanted us to meet with a structural engineer just to confirm that the roof could still hold slate. So I already spoke with the architectural firm, design firm, and with the OPM, and they have a couple engineers. And if we get an affirmative vote from your board today, we're gonna go forward with that. And we're gonna take it from there, see if there's anything else the architect recommends, or the engineer recommends, and we'll move forward.
Could you talk a little bit just about the exact numbers involved of going forward with the original bid with asphalt versus adding the slate? What's the difference in terms of the numbers?
$229,000.
Okay, and John, when you do that, I've got your memo in front of me and I checked your math. Math looks fine, except that why would you only turn back 251, 340 instead of the 357, 189, unless there's something else you're going to be.
Oh, no, exactly, Kathy. Yes,
Right.
you're absolutely correct in that. My goal is to turn back at least the 251.
Okay.
I don't want to touch that contingency fund. But along the way, you're going to run into small stuff. You're always going to. I'm not expecting some massive change orders. Ideally, I'd love to turn back the full 350 something. You're going to run into a $10, $20, $30,000 thing sooner or later. You just do. I'm not expecting $200,000 change orders again.
Okay, and what is the contingency? Remind us.
251.
Okay, so of the 2238, 251 is contingency.
Yes, if that's the number listed down there, at least the contingency fee. Yes.
Hey,
Oh,
John,
so that's where you're getting your 251, 340. That is your contingency.
Yeah,
Okay.
there you go.
Okay.
John, what do you expect the structural engineer review to cost? Do we have that in the budget somewhere?
I did ask them yesterday. They're expecting probably about $4,000 or $5,000. I hope they can get it done for that. It's pretty straightforward. This building was constructed with, you're now talking 150-year-old,
Right.
true 2x12s. This is a strong roof.
Mhm.
Okay, so you don't expect there to be an issue holding the slate, is what?
I do not. I do not, because the roof originally had slate. I really don't think there's going to be an issue. But you know what? Like I told them yesterday, anyone who's worked with me knows I like to err on the side of caution. So I have no problem with this. I think it's a good thing to do.
Who was the vote in capital against this?
The one staining against
Joe
it,
Palmer.
Joe Palmer.
Palmer.
Joe.
I have a couple of questions. So as I understand it, basically what you're suggesting, and I think that the technical side of your memo is spot on. You know, slate lasts a long time. Maintaining it, if you have to maintain it, is more expensive. From a financial point of view, this makes absolutely no sense. It's in fact, it's a bad decision. If you look at the alternative is to put slate on or to put 3 asphalt roofs on. A roof now, a roof in 30 years, and a roof in 60 years. That's kind of the balancing act. So if you look at it in terms of present value, the present value of those 3 asphalt roofs is something in the neighborhood of $125,000, maybe $150,000.
Al, what'd you use for your discount rate? And what'd you use for your cost?
I used 4%.
Right, because I've done it too, Sam's done it, and we're getting a pretty good number as far as the cost. So we probably should look at those. So I've got a number that actually is positive.
Yeah,
as
me
far as
too,
using
Al.
slate.
Yeah, I don't.
What did you use for inflation for replacement?
I did not
cost?
use an inflator, but
That's the
even if you
kicker,
do,
Al.
you know,
You gotta do
I
that. Yeah, you
even
gotta
if I
inflate.
use an inflator, I don't think it's going to make that much difference. The second thing is, in 30 years, I'm going to be dead.
Wait a minute.
And
Don't say that.
no, it's
No,
you know, I have no problem with that concept. This is just another chance to spend a gob more money on the 85 and 30 intersection at the expense of things we could do elsewhere in our neighborhoods. And so I think you can know where I'm going to go on this vote. Technically, John, you're right, but I don't think this is an appropriate financial decision. I don't think the townhouse is a museum. I think it is a place of business. We've had an asphalt roof on it for a number of years, and no one has ever complained about the fact that there was an asphalt roof on it. You know, there's an asphalt roof on my house, which, by the way, cost a whole, like 15% of what we're paying for an asphalt roof for the townhouse. Yeah, I can't support this.
Mhm.
And it's not because the technical side of this is wrong. I think the financial side of this is wrong. I think that the people who live in town in 30 years can pay for a new roof. I think we've got better uses of this money today.
Al, I expected you to say that, and I appreciate what you did. That's why I made sure I did the present value, because I knew you do it too. So I wish we could compare notes as far as that goes. If the present value had been positive, that is the net present value of doing this now, and comparing it to replacing the roof, asphalt roof 2 more times besides this, were positive, would you change your mind?
I don't know. It would certainly be a big influence.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Actually, we're going to be replacing the roof probably 3 more times. You can expect at least 90 years. As I mentioned in the memo, St. Mark's is 150. It may be 4 or 5
Yeah.
more times.
Well,
And I did 3, so I did 3 in my computation as far
Yeah,
as.
that's
Right.
very
That's-
conservative.
So I would like to have Marguerite have an opportunity here if you.
I beg your pardon.
Sorry,
Oh,
if you have any questions of John.
John, where's the slate coming from?
This is from Vermont, this slate, actually. The color is
there-
actually referred to as Vermont black, I believe.
Okay, and once it's installed, what is the Vermont black? What is the maintenance situation with that? Do you need someone from Vermont to repair it should a slate fall off?
Yeah, well, generally how you do it with slate roofs, I wouldn't expect any repairs for quite some time.
Yep.
Unlike the slate roofs of the past that used to use iron nails, you now use copper or stainless steel, which is much more durable. But if you do have to repair a slate on a roof, it's not a big issue. I actually take care of a property out in Clinton, slate roof. Every like 5 or 6 years, we have them come out what we call walking the roof.
Mhm.
They inspect, takes them about 2 hours, do the whole roof. They go in, if you find a slate that's got a crack or something, they take care of it. It's very straightforward.
Well, I only have the basis of my own house, which has had a asphalt roof replaced twice in my short tenure in it, 30 years. I'm very pro slate. I also grew up in a house that had a slate roof, and it was fine. So I'm in support of it.
The thing that convinced me besides the numbers, so I did the numbers first. That was important to me. And I, again, it all depends on the discount rate and the fact. So Al, Sam and I've used 3 replacements. That's probably the difference in our numbers. Once I got past that, I saw John Parent one day last week at the townhouse, just by coincidence. And he said, so we were looking toward the roofs of the church, the townhouse, and Pilgrim Church. And he said, look at what you would get if you looked at St. Mark's, look at Pilgrim. Obviously, the St. Mark's church roof is much more beautiful than Pilgrim. But as a member of St. Mark's Church and pretty familiar with their budget and what they spend money on, I can't think of any time we spent any money on that slate roof, and it's 150 years old. And we've got such a tight budget. So I don't think we're spending much money. Maybe we should be, but we're not. So it has really, really held up extraordinarily well.
Yeah, now I would again respectfully disagree. I did look at the numbers, and I'm convinced it's actually a positive financial decision, which is a key driver for me. So I'm
So-
for this, and I would add too, Andrew, that the other comment that came out of the Capital Improvement Committee meeting,
Mhm.
Jason was not happy about the process here, and I think he's got
Yep.
a right to be less than happy about that. So we learned from that, and hopefully we'll do better with that. kind of
Well, I
thing.
was thinking that we first just considered this issue and then I have some thoughts on that, but
Good. Okay.
I mean, where I come down is I've been thinking about this for the last couple of weeks, and I'm going to support it. I do think that there's an aesthetic component to this that's just beyond the just, pure dollars and cents. And the whole idea of this project was one big consolidated project to improve the envelope of the building. And I think you made a good point in the memo about how you couldn't use CPC money, right? You couldn't use CPC money to just put on a new asphalt roof on the building, but you could use CPC monies for this. So I think you've done your homework and looking into it, and I don't want you to feel penalized in some way because the project is going too well, and that it's really just as a result of really good management and some luck that this opportunity came.
You just cursed me, Andrew.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that's actually a good segue into, and maybe it's an item for a later meeting, but yeah, I mean, there were some good questions that Jason and other people on Capitol raised yesterday, but I think it has to do with where there's a project, it's approved, it's vetted, it's approved by different boards, and then during the project, something happens and there's a consideration of a change order. I'm just trying to balance how have there been other change orders on this project?
Yeah, smaller ones. There weren't anything massive. The only one that had some real heft to it, and we have no choice, is when a chimney came down, you had some rotted wood where flashing had leaked around a chimney over the years. So you have literally no choice on those ones. You got rot, we have to address it. We had like the back chimney. It was someone had done it flat, so we brought it back to historic. That was like a couple $1,000s. It was like nothing. And I'm trying to think about anything else. I think there's one more small one, but there was nothing huge. We've been very, very fortunate on this job. And the only reason I even brought this forward is that the contractor's like, I don't see anything major coming down the road. It's like you're in pretty good shape at this point.
Yeah.
So the conversation about whether a change order in a project falls within going back to capital, I think a discussion that I don't think it's an automatic thing. This is a big change order. I don't believe, I imagine Jason's watching this, but I don't think in the CIPC bylaw that we talked about change orders. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'll give you an example. The public safety building had 250 change orders. And we didn't have a capital committee back then to go back to, but we didn't have time to go back to capital for every single one of those. So we need to have a rational discussion about this. I'm not sure I agree that this should have gone back to capital, except that it's a big change order. Select board certainly didn't deal with the materials and the components of this. All we did was vote to support the article that came forward to CPC, who they supported. So we certainly didn't get into the weeds on this. So, and to me, we're kind of in the weeds here. But I also want to say, Al, I really appreciate what you're bringing forth here. I agree with you that a lot of CPC money has been concentrated in certain areas of the town. So I'm glad you said what you did, because I think it's important to keep that in mind going forward.
So before we put this up for a vote, I'm thinking about whether there should be any kind of condition or caveat to the motion, because I know for the CPC, or not CPC, CIPC vote, they voted to support a contingent on your getting, I don't know how remember exactly how it was phrased, but looking into the structural engineering of it, right? So the concern that they had expressed, you looked into it and we're okay. You're still waiting for some more information.
Yep, again, just waiting. If I get approval from your board today, we already have 2 firms lined up, so we're going to grab one and get the approval. Because honestly, if the structural engineer says no, I don't want to do it.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
But shouldn't that be a contingency for our vote, Andrew?
That's what I
Yes,
was
yes,
getting at. I mean,
successful
based on what John's
approval.
saying, I think
Yeah.
it should be. Okay, so would someone like to make a motion?
Sure, I'll make the motion. I move that we approve the change order to support the change from asphalt to slate per Mr. Parent's memo, subject to a structural review by structural engineers.
A positive result from the,
Yes, yeah, positive result, yes.
I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor, Mr. Hamilton?
It's a roll call.
No.
vote.
Okay, Mr. Stivers,
Yes,
Ms. Cook,
Yes, aye.
Ms. Landry,
Yes.
and myself, aye. So it passes 4-1. And I just think we should maybe have a little separate discussion about the change order issue. I completely understand when you're getting at Kathy, there's just no way that a department heads can have to go to the select board or 3 other committees for, consideration of minor change orders, but, for like the St. Mark's Park project, there were some very significant change orders that completely changed the project that were not formally considered.
Yeah,
by
I
the
agree.
select board.
It's just
Yeah.
worth a discussion so we can try to truly, describe where we think it's appropriate, where it's not.
Okay. All right. In that case, should we move on to the next item on the agenda? Well, John, feel free to stay on if you want, but I also want to thank John for
Yep. Thank you, John.
the work
Thank
that
you,
you put
everyone.
into it. And, I was sending John an email very early this morning and boom, he said, I'm already been here for a long time.
I get here early.
Okay.
All right, everyone, have a great day.
Okay.
Thank you again.
Thank
Thanks, John. So the next item on the agenda is award of the contract for the paving bid for Newton Street and the Liberty Stockwell sidewalks. Mark has a memo in here that's pretty self-explanatory. I know Capital is aware of this. They didn't take a formal vote on or really even feel the need to weigh in on it in a formal way. I don't think there was any serious concern expressed about it. Does anyone have any questions, or Bill, would you like to speak to this?
Yeah, I'm looking at Abdul's recommendation, and bear with me, I'm coming up to speed on a lot of this. I do know we have a report from Davy regarding the sidewalk damage and the options available to the town to deal with the options. I do want to point out that alternative one does not include care for or pruning of the root systems. It's strictly sidewalk construction numbers. So even though it's 45,000 roughly, and I know the town meeting article allocated 50,000, I'm suspect whether or not we might exceed that after the project's completed, with dealing with the roots and the tree system. So I just want the board to be aware of that.
Yeah, and Bill, I don't know if you're aware of the history of this. We had a strong push from the neighborhood there to actually deal with this. And at one point, I think I recall correctly that there was a proposal from Davy or somebody to do that work for a number that I can't remember right now. But I thought the neighborhood asked, maybe it was Davy, asked some tree company.
It was Bartlett, Sam.
Bartlett, okay, to provide an estimate. Kathy, do you remember what the number was?
No, but it was higher. But Bill, I appreciate you being here, in your first week. So we've got more money than the $50,000. There's already 47 in an old article for sidewalk maintenance. So you've really got 97 to maintain sidewalks if this were to need some more money. So 50 is not the number here. We've got 97 in those articles.
I anticipate that we might encounter a change if we deal with the trees properly.
So Bill, could you just explain that a little bit more? My understanding, and it really came from the resident that complained about the Stockwell Lane issue and him showing photographs of it, is that there's roots in the trees that are underneath the sidewalk and they're growing and they're splitting.
That is true. If you go on Google Earth and take a look at the view from the street level, you'll see that the roots have been painted orange on the sidewalk and they stand out readily. So, and it's nearly every tree, from what I can see, that has roots that are going under the sidewalk. The Davy report indicates that it's really a combination of reasons that's occurring. It's the tree type along with shallow ledge. Shallow depth to ledge.
Okay.
So the root system has nowhere to go. And on a bigger picture, the planning board should really anticipate this kind of issue with street trees, and they should adjust their regulations properly, so that this is not something we have to deal with on the maintenance end. But that's neither here nor there for this. With regard to this, again, we may lose trees as a result of pruning the root system. Might be fine.
That's what I was getting at. You're talking about you gotta take out it. You just gotta remove the tree to prevent this problem
Right.
from
I
happening. It's
don't-
not a matter of pruning.
I think that's unavoidable, unfortunately, that you will lose trees if you put sidewalks in.
Do you have to do that before you put in the new sidewalk?
You want to, yes.
Are these maples?
Some are red maples. There's a combination based on the Davy report. Red maple was the one that just stuck out to me.
Yeah.
Okay, so so on.
Yeah,
on the
maples are
question of-
fairly shallow rooted, as I recall.
I'm not going to pretend I'm a tree expert, but I know the red maples do grow slower than a normal maple, which is good.
My recollection from either the Bartlett work or somebody made a report at one point was that if we do the pruning, that the theory was that they didn't think at that point that it would have a significant impact on the trees, but in fact that there was some period of time that we'll be in the same position again, like 20 or 30 years down the road. So it's not a permanent solution, but it does buy us a fair amount of time for that particular sidewalk, was the opinion that I read.
Yeah, I'd say that's a fair assessment.
This is a discussion to have with the planning board for sure if they're putting in for replanting trees along the sides of roads.
But- Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead. That was all I wanted to say.
So, Bill, is what you're saying that first on the consideration of, you could accept the bid, but just the base bid and then not the alternative bid, but then this work would just cost more money later if you weren't.
What would happen is instead of dealing with it now, we would likely get a defined approach. Do we want to trim back the roots? How are we going to deal with this? And then we'd package it up as an alternate for a subsequent bid.
Okay,
Maybe next year or a couple of years from now. Prices obviously will go up over time as they do. But at least I feel like this is a little hasty only because it's my first week here and I haven't had a lot of time to think about it. But, I do know that number that they've given us for alternative one will likely increase to properly deal with the root systems.
Okay, so here, Bill, I'm going to forward the email to you, but you've got another 47,970, which was the article where we got mitigation funds from 2 Hopkinton projects, and it was town meeting 5/4/22. So you've got 97,970 in total in sidewalk repair funds.
Sure.
so Bill, you think that you gotta do the tree work to do it most efficiently, you have to do the tree work first and then the sidewalk repair. And
Correct.
if we were to accept this bid, Kathy, do you know about the timing of the whole point is that the contractor, there's an efficiency by doing while they're in town to do the Newton Street work, they swing by, but I don't see how the tree removal work is gonna get in place and approved and funded before the sidewalk work. Do you agree?
We would, may I?
Yeah, sure.
We would award the contract with alternate one, and then immediately ask them to submit a change order request to properly deal with the root systems in the trees.
Which would increase the amount
It
of
would increase the amount, correct?
And this money is in warrant articles, so there's no deadline to spend it. The money's there.
do you have any idea of how much additional expense would involve?
I don't know.
Is Stockwell a scenic road?
Yes,
Well, you know why I'm
I
asking.
haven't checked that. It would be so long as it's after, there were only a handful of roads that were not scenic roads.
There was a substantial number, I thought.
Okay,
78. 78.
78.
Yep. So Bill, the reason Andrew and Sam and I are talking about this one is because we've got a scenic road bylaw. And if we do anything to trees on a scenic road that are public shade trees, we have to have a joint hearing with the planning board.
Again, that's a great point, and I would caution you because we may, if it hasn't been permitted yet, which I don't know if it has. So if we don't have a scenic road permit for this work, I mean, normally you would get that permit in hand included as part of the bid documents and then proceed, because there may be some conditions that they have that the contractor did not consider as part of their price.
And Andrew, I don't know if, we're not talking about, unless I'm hearing wrong, we're not talking about taking a tree down, correct?
I thought we were.
Okay, so
No, we're
we
talking
really,
about-
Potential of that.
okay.
We are talking about, correct me if I'm wrong, we're talking about cutting the roots in the area of the sidewalk, possibly grinding them up and, creating essentially a bed that you can then put the sidewalk on that will be free of roots, at least for a few years. Is that roughly right? Now, that in the process of cutting, when you cut those roots, the tree is growing towards the good direction, because if it's going the other way, it's probably going under a road, which hasn't got a lot of nutrients there, hasn't got a lot of water. And so you are, whereas, if it grows underneath the sidewalk and into somebody's yard, there's moisture, there's nutrients. So, we're not doing the trees any favors.
I
Okay,
guess,
so Al, are we cutting down a tree? I thought we were dealing with.
No, I don't. I don't think so, but we are definitely weakening trees.
Well, that's what I thought the question I was asking is, I thought, Bill, you said to do it properly, you should remove the trees and then do the sidewalk repair.
No, I said you should deal with the trees. Removal is certainly an option, but it's my understanding the town doesn't have a real good feel for that at this point. So
my,
reviewing the Davy report, they focused on cutting back the root system.
Okay,
And to Al's point, the nutrients are coming from that end, and you're cutting the roots
on the bad side.
that are getting the nutrients on that side. And he's
I guess-
absolutely correct.
my question would be, if you do trim back the roots and put on a sidewalk, how long before you have the same problem again?
That was my 20 to 30 years kind of estimate from the Bartlett
Was it,
data that I'd heard.
is
Yeah,
that,
we have a sidewalk in our neighborhood that was put in about 25 years ago, and the trees are definitely buckling it now. So yeah, 25 years, I think, is probably a good guesstimate. 20.
So Bill, if we didn't have a issue with taking down trees and you were just asked objectively, what would you do here? Would you say take that tree down?
Personally, yes. I look at this, you have to understand, I look at this from a maintenance perspective, okay? And that's my focus. I think from the town's perspective, when you have trees in the right of way, it's a hazard, it's an icing issue, depending on the situation. And you have this issue with the roots and infrastructure. So these are all added costs.
who put the tree in the first place? Was it the
Probably
developer?
It was
Sorry?
probably a requirement of a subdivision approval. Yeah,
Well, I
And
think
that-
that this goes to the larger issue of how many sidewalks in town, and if we put in sidewalks, is this going to be an issue with the trees and the sidewalks? And I think that needs to get looked at, not today, but at some point. Because
I think Kathy and I are going to have a discussion on that on the 8th. At least I am.
yes, I think this is important if we're putting in more sidewalks to think about the sidewalk tree relationship.
okay, so just on the agenda items before us right now, I don't think anyone has any issue with the base bid for the paving for Newton Street. And the consideration is really just whether or not to accept the bid also with the alternate bid. And I am a little bit struggling with this, reconciling whether it's the most efficient to do it now, knowing that the cost of it is going to increase, or to do it, do some planning work before doing that. I think if we go the latter approach, it might just fall off the priority chain and not get acted on for a while. And I know that at least some of the residents on these streets have been waiting for a long time to have this addressed.
Well,
I'm
how
I'm
long
also-
will it take if we approve this today? How quickly could we engage someone to come in and do the root work?
Bill?
Are you saying, Al, as a separate contract?
Either as a separate, or do you think the same vendor the paving vendor would do the root work as well?
Yeah, we could have them do it as a change order as part of their contract. They'd hire a sub, and likely the subcontractor that's expert in tree work
Okay,
would
all
deal
right.
with it. And that, to me, that's my preference. However, I do want to reiterate again, we still need to go for a scenic road bylaw hearing with the planning board. And, they may have some minor conditions, or this may put us out a few months, depending on the process.
I would add, Andrew, I took a quick look. Stockwell is actually not a scenic road.
Okay,
Oh, okay, good.
That was one of the
That
proposed
helps, that helps.
68.
okay.
Good job,
want to
Steve.
add
So-
68.
Just to be clear, the whole reason we're adding the sidewalk onto this is because it's the same, we're trying to use the same vendor, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
Right.
Bill's got a good plan.
I do too, and
Okay,
the neighbors have been asking us to do this for as long as I've been on the select board, and so so I really do think we need to get this done.
Yeah, it would, I think people would be disappointed if we did not take this initial step because it was not lined up exactly perfectly. And just to be clear, I noticed now that the agenda says award contract for paving bid, it says Newton Street Liberty / Stockwell, but the memo is Stockwell and Fitzgerald. So we're talking about Fitzgerald. Okay.
Correct.
So I move that is there any other discussion of this?
And one more comment, just to reiterate what we're doing here with Newton Street. So before Karen left, I sat down with her and went over everything that was hanging as far as she was concerned. She absolutely said, this is the last piece of Newton Street. This was totally expected. And she gave me a number of about $250,000. She said it needs to settle. And then we come back next year and do this. So this is absolutely part of the plan that was in place all along.
And that was a pretty good guesstimate of what the amount would be, huh?
Yep.
Anything else? Questions or comments from the board? I move that the board approve awarding the paving bid.
So
Bill, you got a point?
No,
Question?
I'm sorry, somebody came in.
Oh, okay. So I'll make another stab at it. I move that the select board approve awarding the contract for the paving bid for Newton Street and the alternate bid for the sidewalk work on Stockwell Lane and Fitzgerald Lane to the low bidder of Newport Construction Corp.
second,
All those in favor, roll call vote. Mr. Hamilton,
Aye.
Miss Landry,
Aye.
Mr. Stivers,
aye.
Miss Cook,
Aye.
and myself, aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. That was very, very helpful. I really
Yeah,
appreciate it.
good job.
And,
Thank you.
And this
Sure
is
thing.
what we want you to do. We want your opinion on it.
Exactly. Yeah, you're thinking of
Sure.
angles I have not thought about before, which is great.
Okay, thank you.
The next item on the agenda is approving the amended Neary School Building Committee charge, and Jason Malinowski had come forward bringing this to our attention. One of the reasons to do so is to reduce the number of at-large residents from 5 to 3, and right now, I guess the committee is having some difficulties in putting together quorum to regularly hold meetings. Kathy, are you our representative on this committee? Do you want to speak to it?
Yeah, Lisa started and then I've taken over since she's not on the select board. So I'm the select board rep on this committee. It's one of the required seats on the committee. So just let me get on my soapbox for a second. You guys have heard me in the last couple of years say 9 is too many for a committee. So I totally endorse this. You just can't get 9 on committee anymore. So it's really hard. So 7, you want to keep it odd. So you hopefully vote, avoid tie votes. So I fully support reducing this. We did the same thing for advisory. We went from 9 to 7 for advisory for the same reason. This is a really important committee though. So I don't, I would even say, I think 5 is a number for most committees, but I think 7's right for here. So I totally endorse doing this so we can keep going. They haven't had really trouble getting a quorum, but where they're having trouble filling these 2 seats. These are 2 at-large seats that can't be filled. So I encourage you to support doing this so that the committee can be effective. And I still think when you got 7, it gives people more of a push to be at all meetings, et cetera. When you got 9, you got people that say, they don't need me. You don't feel as needed as you do when it's 7. So for many, many reasons, I think we should support Jason's request to do this.
Are there any other questions or comments from the board about this? Would someone like to make a motion?
Sure. I'll move that we approve updating the charge for the committee as proposed.
Second,
All those in favor, myself, aye.
aye.
Mr. Hamilton, aye. Miss Landry,
Aye.
Mr. Stivers,
Aye.
and Miss Cook.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes. That concludes the agenda items that we have for this morning. I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Miss Landry,
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton,
Aye.
Miss Cook,
Aye.
Mr. Stivers,
Aye.
and myself, aye. Okay, meeting
Thank you very much,
adjourned.
everyone, for your time.
Vanessa, can you stay on for just one quick
Sure.
second?
Okay.
Bye-bye.
And Kathy, do you want to, just thinking about planning an agenda meeting for the next meeting?
Okay, I'll stay on with you.
Yeah.
Hang on, we just want to end the recording.